I was arrested. I found myself with an opportunity to either do a sentencing time for the crime or take an opportunity to make a commitment to just turn my whole life around.
Many of the people who are now in the court system are facing crisis in life due to everything from struggles with substances, through persistent mental health problems, through lack of housing.
I'm a lifelong resident of Harlem. I've seen what happens when communities are underinvested in, when underlying issues aren't addressed. And importantly, I've seen what happens when you make the investment. Incarceration is not always the answer. We know incarceration can be harmful. We're not going to prosecute and incarcerate our way to public safety.
When we received Jesse's referral, he was in custody at Rikers.
Just stuck in a world that is in just a commotion and a lot of negativity. So you could never really change yourself from one person to another, or even have an opportunity to want to change when you're going through a system like that.
He was found eligible for our Alternative to Incarceration program, Manhattan Justice Opportunities.
Manhattan Justice Opportunities is an alternative sentencing program. We work with judges, prosecutors, and defense attorneys here in Manhattan to steer cases away from the traditional sorts of punishment and instead offer people an opportunity to resolve their criminal case by connecting to community-based social services. Judge Bybin identified that there was a need for a new problem-solving court here in Manhattan, a need for a court that the cases that didn't fit neatly in the mental health court or the drug court could go to.
Judicial diversion or drug court, they're statutory. There's certain parameters you have to meet in order to be diverted to those courts. But with felony ATI court, essentially, it can service any individual with a felony case.
We wanted to be on the front foot and at the earliest moment assessing and screening every felony case for potential ATI placement. To make the appropriate determination, we take a careful and holistic look at each individual case, including the specific conduct that occurred, prior criminal history, the viewpoint of the victim, whether mental health or substance use issues involved. And if we determine public safety would be benefited by sending a case to felony ATI court, we'll work with defense counsel and the judge to do just that.
The social worker conducts a very comprehensive clinical assessment. And the goal of the clinical assessment is really to try to get at two things. What are their social service needs? And also, what are the factors that led to their arrest?
During my assessment with Jesse, he shared that he did have some struggles. He had some substance use issues and some mental health issues as well, and we found him appropriate for a residential treatment.
I was there for 1 year practically in the entire established program. They set up a chart that set a schedule that you can follow through, and every day you would go to different classes.
In the beginning, there was lots of resistance. What we hear from the community sometimes is, who's protecting me? Who's protecting my well-being and my children's well-being? But this kind of an alternative to incarceration program does protect people. It protects people in the short term, and equally important, it protects them in the long term by reducing recidivism and by addressing the core problems which contributes to people's criminal behavior.
When you go to jail, you're often not given an opportunity to work on the things that are leading to your arrest. Learning those skills in the communities where you're going to be living for the rest of your life is really important because you're exposed to the triggers that you're going to be coping with. You're exposed to people you might be running into. You're building community support, whether that's with family, whether that's with friends.
Going, getting on a train, being more responsible as an individual, you cannot get that sitting in prison or sitting in jail doing time. You're giving them away to education because they needed it. Then you give them another chance to go change their whole life. If it was drugs, don't use it no more. They needed that. I needed it, I did it. And then you give me a chance to get me a housing, an apartment that I did not have. I did it and I needed it. It was blessed and beautiful. So you're making all the changes and giving a person another chance.
Connecting with the people who are clinicians, the people who can address that underlying harm, to address the underlying issue, to end that cycle in recidivism, that brings us public safety and community wellness. So that's what this work is about.